Hello, everybody. Mark Schaffline with you, and this is Election Edge Friday's edition. Happy to have you with us today, 6 o'clock back east, 3 here on the West Coast. And what a crazy week it has been. Everything talking about cats, dogs, who's up, who's down, what polls right, what polls wrong. If it's Friday, Jason Burmis, welcome to Election Edge. Happy to have you, my friend.
Yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride. I guess we have not talked since the debate. And let me just say this out of the gates, Mark. I thought Kamala Harris did well. I know I'm going to be crucified by people for this, but let me tell you why. First of all, I think the strategy of hiding her away from live interviews, press conferences is good. She doesn't have any politics of her own. She has talking points and she has rhetoric. Now, the real thing that I think they had to work on here was her personality, right? I mean, the woman didn't come off genuine in a staged convenience store social media video. So I really feel like the last 30 days or so were conditioning her not to be uncomfortable, not to laugh and cackle, which, to her credit, she did not do once. The best was smiling and calling him a liar. Now, as far as the policy and the talking points, look, we all knew what they were going to be. Overall, under the conditions, I think that she delivered them well. Now, let me say this, that the element that allowed her to do it well that a lot of people are not talking about. A lot of people are obviously talking about the moderation, the fact checks, etc. We'll probably get into that in a moment. But the fact that there's no audience, without a live audience, you do not have a real-time human reaction, and you are in much more of a controlled environment. And look, I'll be honest, although I thought Trump did Trump and he did it pretty well, there were no ooh or ah Trump moments because there weren't allowed to be. There was no audience reaction. And we already knew what page not only the moderators, but the other candidate on the stage had.
You know, it's interesting though, and I'm going to share this with you. And I said this on Election Edge a couple times this week. Kamala Harris did very well from a debate perspective. She was cool. She was polished. She talked. She dodged questions. She didn't answer questions. Right. I mean, it started right out of the gate. Madam Vice President, is the country better off now than it was 4 years ago? And she right away went into talking about how she was born and raised in a middle class family. I mean, literally dodged the question. So I think that I'll call them the mainstream media and the legacy media, every poll that I saw showed her winning the debate. But like I've learned over many decades of following this, give it a day or two. Let things settle down a little bit. Don't rush to judgment. And, we were live pre-debate and post-debate here on Patriot TV. So I was watching it, talking, thinking. So when I went home and watched it again, it was obvious to me that she had a strong performance. Donald Trump had a strong performance on the issues. And I would say this, about 75, 80% of the debate, Donald Trump was very good. But like Donald Trump, you got to take the good and the bad. The other 20, 25%, he was very bad. And I use the old analogy, Lucy and the football. Well, it's the equivalent of Kamala delivered Lucy and the football, and Trump brought a couple extra footballs just to make sure he stumbled over every single bait that she threw out there. I mean, everything from crowd size to the 2020 election. I mean, nobody, Jason, I have not met a single voter that cares about crowd size. I have not met a single voter that cares about the 2020 election. What I do hear from voters is they want to hear what the economic plan is. They want to hear how we can fix the damn border. They want to hear how we can have, peace abroad and not be involved in wars, how we can have crime reduced. Yeah, I know statistics, will say, oh, crime's down, but in a lot of states and cities, it's not. And those happen to be blue areas. So people wanted to hear answers. And with Kamala Harris, Jason, they got questions dodged. And sure enough, I mean, not only that, think about how she stepped in it at the end of the debate when she said, well, I went to, go see Zelensky 3 days before the war started. And I'm thinking, Why would you say that? Because the implication is you saw him, and then because you were unsuccessful 3 days later, the war broke out. So, I mean, that's my thoughts relative to the debate. And I think your points are spot on. Here's the question I have for you, because you follow these numbers. She has gotten apparently no post debate bounce, because a lot of those undecided voters, Jason, they're still undecided. They literally don't know what her position is.
Well, let me just say this. Just like I've said, most people know who they're voting for, Mark. When we talk about undecided voters, I think those are the ones you're going to have to sign up as first timers for the voter rolls. The one thing that you did forget that she proudly stated on the stage that, again, anybody who has been paying attention to politics is that she bragged about being endorsed by Dick Cheney. I didn't know that was a sell in 2024. I didn't know that was a sell in 2014. I mean, it's insane that that was on the stage. Now, let me just take issue with your thoughts on Trump's performance. I thought you said about 80%. I thought, yeah, right around there, but for totally different reasons. See, you're upset about the crowd size stuff, and I still scroll a little bit and I see the culture/meme war, right? So right now, you can watch videos of people being bussed into Kamala's area. And, you know, in that court of public opinion, I can understand how he can be triggered and upset. Here's where I was upset. Yes, the immigration issue is an important one, but as much as it got hammered home with other issues, it was overdone in the sense that he never brought up certain issues to me that should have been addressed not only by the other candidate, but acknowledged by the moderators. And let me give you the first example. One, I was very glad that he brought up the assassination attempt on him, but he only briefly framed it about the rhetoric of the media and the other side. And there were so many other questions about that. He should have framed the question directly at the moderators and Kamala and then asked, don't you think the American people want to know this? That would have been smart. Number two, one of the other, go ahead. Go. No.
I agree with that. No,
yes.
Go ahead. I agree with what you said 100%.
Yeah, because we were on a 90-minute debate. And look, mics were getting cut, but like you said, both of them were able to kind of massage what the question was and where the answer would go. Kamala, like you said, did it out of the gates. The other thing that was never brought up, yes, he first of all, let me give him another positive point. He talked about World War III. He talked about nuclear war. We just saw what Putin said. We're seeing these drones hit apartment buildings into Russia. Mark, you've known me for a while. When I talk space, what do I talk about? Satellite systems. Putin mentioned that several times, folks. All right. NATO satellites, U.S. satellites. This could escalate into World War III. Trump distinguished that several times. And he also said, hey, and this is another point for him. He directed it directly at Kamala Harris. The one thing you and the media won't say directed right at him is they have nuclear weapons. All right. While he's trying to goad him into, do you want Ukraine to win the war? Listen, I would have said that's a child's question. The real question is, do you want to stop death and nuclear war in this country? Now, the other point that he should have hammered in is the mass declassification of documents. And the reason that is, and it's, again, all the way up to 9/11, is it would have made big headlines on the eve of the 9/11 anniversary, which everybody went to, right? And you saw Biden had to leave early, Biden and Kamala, because there were family members that were quite upset at that administration and their decisions regarding Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and other decisions, right? So that would have been a big deal and something that there is no response from Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Listen, they can jump onto policy, Mark, like no tax on tips, right? They might not deliver, but they can jump on that. They ain't jumping on declassifying the 9/11 documents, I assure you. So I think there's some missed opportunities there, right? In fact, right now, the big scandal, and I'm just going to leave it, is him having a relationship with his supporter, Laura Loomer, an investigative journalist. And one of the main digs is she's being framed as a conspiracist because in the past she has questioned the 9/11 events. I'm suggesting right now, because of that, lean into it, Donald. Your base wants those documents. That is an issue. And that's one the other side doesn't have really any kind of response other than to attack. And the guy's been attacked over and over again. And like you said, despite her having a pretty solid performance, no push in even the official polls, right?
Right. No, she has literally gained nothing. That's why when all the the mainstream media outlets were saying she won the debate, well, okay, well, Donald Trump lost 3 debates in 2016 by the numbers, and last I checked, he won that election, which he did, of course. Listen, what has happened since that debate? And I do want to come back to your Laura Loomer thing here, because I'm sitting here watching various things and I'm saying, why the hell is this lady getting all this publicity? What are they trying to do? Well, you follow it closer than I do, but it seems to me they're trying to paint Trump with a Laura Loomer brush. I mean, every media outlet in the world is carrying this term. I'm saying, what the hell is going on here? What has this lady done? I mean, when you get disavowed by Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, something's got to be wrong. And again, I'm not going to tell Trump how to run a campaign. I mean, I said the other day, what he ought to do is go to a grocery store and have the press follow him in there and draw highlights to what's happening with, the price of steak, price of meat, bread, eggs, you name it. And that would hammer home his point. I get the feeling that a lot of people in the media and maybe in Harris's campaign are saying, there are very few undecided voters out there. Maybe we didn't connect with them, and maybe that's why they're pushing so hard for this second debate, because Jason, if off that debate performance, which again has been hailed in her benefit, panned in Trump's, if she didn't pick up independent, undecided voters, then, as they say, Lucy, we have a problem here. And the early polling that I have seen suggests not only did she not gain any votes, but some of the independents were really leaning towards Republican positions. When they have these dials where they measure it during the course of a debate, where it says, if you agree or disagree with someone, turn the dial this way. Well, when Trump was speaking about economic issues, about immigration, about, as you mentioned, World War III, Russia, nuclear, the independents and the Republicans were almost neck and neck. Now, obviously, the red was slightly above the yellow, but the blue was way down below. Obviously, Democrats they loathe this man. So if your audience is Democrats, you're thinking, oh my God, this guy's the biggest buffoon ever. But independent voters, Jason, which you have to win a national election, seemed like they were siding with Trump. And where they had these groups, okay, we have a group of 20 undecided voters here. I'd try not to put a lot of faith in that stuff, but there was one clip that caught my attention. We played it the other day, and it's of a lady who was saying, listen, I just don't know enough about her. And when Trump was president, we didn't have 20% inflation. The economy was good, inflation was 1.5%, and I was making money and staying ahead of the game. And I don't think I can trust her. And then the moderator says, well, who'd you vote for previously? Well, I voted for Trump in 16 and 20. I was open-minded, but after hearing her non-policies, I'm going to vote for Trump again. That sort of represented what actually, was happening there. All right, we're going to take a break here, 90-second break. But when we come back, Jason and I are going to dive into the other things post-debate that you really need to be cognizant of. See you in 90 seconds.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
The world is about to shift. Banks are going cashless globally with the emergence of central bank digital currency, which will bring with it programmable money and the ability to turn on or off your purchasing power based on your digital social profile. It's like the equivalent of spyware in your bank account. You need to get out of the system with the world's safest and most precious assets, silver and gold. Call Kirk Elliott Precious Metals at 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900.
And we're back. Hey, folks, 706, on that Kirk Elliott, 720-605-3900. Pick up the phone and call Kirk. They are a great company, a big supporter of Patriot TV. And for those of you who are concerned about the dollar and this $35 trillion deficit, not a bad idea to have some gold and silver in your portfolio. Hey, Jason, post that debate, Harris came out actually right afterward and said she was willing to do a second debate. And again, I've heard people tell me, well, Mark, it's the art of the deal. Trump's playing three-dimensional chess. He knows more than we all know. Okay, maybe true. But he came out and he said there was no way he was going to do another debate with her. In your view, is that a good decision, bad decision, or have no effect whatsoever?
See, I think I'm somewhere in between. I think it's a bad decision to go into definites. However, the guy never admits when he's wrong, but in something like this, you could see kind of the flip-flop. And this is what I would have done. I would have said, I am going to welcome a second debate, but this time around, we are going to have a live audience. I would actually propose that it take place in an arena such as Madison Square Garden. And I would say the moderators are not going to be anybody in the mainstream media. And I would give a list of different podcasters. Obviously, I would think Joe Rogan would be amongst them as the moderator. And I would say, look, this is not going to be carried by the networks, although obviously they'll copy it. But YouTube should embrace this because we're going to do it live on YouTube. Flip the script on its head. Why wouldn't YouTube want to do that? I think it would honestly break numbers, right? They wouldn't want to suppress it in the algorithm. You would have a live audience like no other. And frankly, on top of it, in 2007, on the run up to the 2008 election, YouTube did their first debate in conjunction with CNN, where American citizens uploaded their questions and they went to those videos. In this environment, you could actually have people ask questions like in a town hall. This is supposed to be a government forum by the people. And I think that Trump should remind everybody of that more and more. I think there's a snowball's chance in hell that the Kamala Harris team, adheres to those rules and says, we'll make that happen. But again, you want to show that the emperors have no clothes and put that out there. And let me say this. If he were to do something like that and they could decline, well, guess what? You could still have the town hall. And we've talked already about, and my feeling, that most people have their mind made up, but you can bring new voters in. Well, Joe Rogan's the #1 podcast in the world. You do this in front of a live audience. It becomes just a town hall and that podcast. Again, it is going to break records. And that's what he needs. He needs to lean into the idea of the everyman, Mark, because it's those people that are the ones. Look, I've said it before on this program. Some people did it last time. It was the first time out, my brother amongst them. And it's not because he loved Trump, but he saw, how bad it was going to be with Biden. Well, he voted for Trump. He feels like his vote didn't count. He's been blackpilled. That has happened to people. So you got to go for those new ones in a manner you never have before. And you got to kind of, he's already thinking outside the proverbial box. But again, we live in this weird era where these campaigns are boxed into a narrative that's driven by a media that's less and less relevant, but doesn't only have control over the traditional media space. They have control over the social media and digital space where they can project that narrative and then ban the other.
I like that idea. I mean, to have a Joe Rogan type person, maybe someone who's not a network anchor, I think that's a great idea. And I don't know about Madison Square Garden. I mean, I don't know if they would agree to that, but some studio audience, I think is great because
bring it to the NYC. Show the people what they want. Again, New York is supposed to be as blue as can be in the middle of Manhattan, right? Let the haters come in too, and it's going to be a freebie. First 20,000 that can see, Mark. You know what? Bust them in, Kamala. You have all the advantage in the world as a Democrat in that regard. Think about that. You got New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. I know you want to get into New Hampshire a little later, all within driving distance. The tickets are going to go to the whatever seated. Then we're going to see it. And like I said, there's those human reactions that have been missing from this process now for a very, very long time. I want that amplified. And whether you love Trump or hate Trump, he brings that out in people. That's when the crowd size, that's when it matters, Mark. That's when it matters.
No, you're so right about that. And look, in an election that has seen literally the most bizarre presidential election in my lifetime, I mean, just thinking back about it, Biden was the nominee. Trump gets shot. She becomes the nominee. They have the debate. We have a president that's incoherent. I mean, it's been one thing after another. Trump up in the polls, down in the polls. Now it looks like he's regaining his traction again. So it's been bizarre. So anything I think could happen. So basically what you're advocating here is the art of the deal, where Trump initially says no, he gets his negotiators out there. And my gut feeling would tell me is if the internal polling of either Trump or Harris, and I'm not talking these public polls, they all have internal polling that shows where the race really is. And normally you can see where they're campaigning to tell you if they're up or down. And I'll get into that a little bit later as we will. But I think it would be fascinating. My gut feeling, Jason, tells me there will be another Trump-Harris debate. And really, I break it down in two reasons why. One, Trump's got a huge ego. Internally, he may think he did okay in that debate, but he's got a lot of people privately telling him you sucked, okay? But Harris may want the debate too because she didn't exactly have a stellar performance. Yes, she was poised. She was articulate. But she didn't answer the questions that the uncommitted voters want answers to. So I think they both have a reason to want to get involved in that. And we'll see, if it happens. But I do want to give you this. And we talked about this yesterday on Election Edge when Mark Fincham, who's a Senate candidate in Arizona, and Cameron Moore were on the show. Fincham pointed out that C-SPAN, not exactly Trump friendly, conducted their own polling afterward. And this is one where people who watched the debate could actually dial in and register their vote. Again, this is C-SPAN. This is not like RNC TV or something like that. Almost 300,000 votes. Trump was getting 74% on who did better in the debate. So again, not scientific, but it's certainly not done by what I would call a Trump-friendly audience.
Let me stop. Can I just comment on the C-SPAN thing for me?
Yeah.
Listen, I have been. I know I don't look maybe as nerdy as I actually am, but C-SPAN has been a place, I would say, for the people that are politically engaged in not only what the echo chambers that they want to hear, but where everything else is, right? So really, as a young filmmaker, documentary-wise. Before they had the entire archive online, they had little bits and pieces where you could look up. Generally was in there, and then the transcripts. They didn't have the videos uploaded then. I used that as such a tool, but at the same time, found myself drawn to a lot more C-SPAN. So when you say 300,000 people, right? First of all, you're not talking about any particular state, and maybe it's global. I don't know what everything about the poll exactly was, but you're talking about the people that are really politically engaged altogether. And like you said, the bottom line is most people know Trump's positions. He's been pretty clear on those positions. He has those faults. But when we're talking about serious things like the economy and foreign policy and World War III, yeah, those who are politically engaged and not in imagination land, of course they're going to go that route. I mean, this isn't NPR's audience, right? This isn't what gets shoveled into everybody's car and what's hip to hear. This is the thing I've always respected about C-SPAN is that it is in the raw. Even, C-SPAN not known for their shows because they don't have many of them. And the shows that they do have often been call-in shows. And I would argue, even from the 80s when that started on, that was a good pulse for people that were politically engaged throughout the country, because it is a hodgepodge of perspectives, and it's much harder to drive those narratives when it's not about punditry and narratives.
So you put a little more credibility in this then for people who are really engaged in the political arena. But how about those low information voters, Jason? So that, to borrow Rush Limbaugh, the great late Rush Limbaugh's term, there's a lot of people that they literally, you and I watch the debate, we talk about it, but there's a lot of people that maybe they watched part of it, didn't watch it at all. There's a big chunk of people in this country that don't vote, okay? But there's, again, everybody, if you don't know Trump's policies by now, then your head's been under a rock or something. But about 30% of the undecided vote, they literally do not know what her position is. And again, people like to use the word salad associated with her. I didn't hear word salads the other night. I just didn't hear any. If I was a Democrat, I would be doing this. Oh, Kamala's great. Republican, she's doing it again. But that independent that is so important, Jason. I am literally not seeing any bounce for her afterward. And I saw the following, and we're going to get these poll numbers after we take the break here. But in a couple states, she's in Pennsylvania today. And I think the campaign is recognizing, the Harris campaign, they're behind in Pennsylvania. And they're spending a huge amount of time there. Yes, could she win the election without it? She could, but boy, that path narrows. And if Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, which right now he's been ahead in like 16 out of 20 polls, and I just think no matter the other night when she talked about, I'm for fracking now. Yeah, she was against it before. People in Pennsylvania, I don't think they're buying what she's selling. And I got to believe, Jason, I've said it before, Pennsylvania's the linchpin to this election. Whoever wins that, I think is going to be elected. All right, we're going to take our break now. But when we come back, we're going to go through some scenarios on a couple of these states. And obviously, Jason's got some very humorous things he's going to share with us related to some of these flip-flops. We'll be back in 90 seconds.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
Every American needs this historical DVD keepsake. Flynn delivered the truth, whatever the cost. Hand signed by General Michael Flynn. Order now at the Patriot TV store. Use promo code PTV at checkout to get special savings. The Patriot TV store, a secure, hassle-free shopping experience.
The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your donor deck now. Go to the PatriotTV store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the donor deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your donor deck now.
Folks, these donor deck, it's pretty cool stuff. You got a nice coin with it, and a lot of the donations go to your favorite charities. All right, listen, Madam Producer, if you could just throw a little levity in here, I'd like to play that 40-second Kamala Harris video, and then Jason will comment on it after we take a look at it.
President Harris began the debate by punting the first question on the economy.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
It went on from there. Despite the economy being the #1 issue facing the country, the sitting vice president generally reverted to talking points about a few of her policy proposals. Even Harris allies today are saying that she needs to talk more about what she will do for Americans if elected.
Jason, the flip-flopper in chief?
It's never a good day when Jake Tapper, who's been a cheerleader for your side and looks more like a middle-aged lesbian than Rachel Maddow, is coming down on you, and you don't have, really any comeback. Now, look, she did the right thing, right? Because you don't want to answer that question. The economy is awful. And Mark, I want to bring it all the way back to where you kind of began that last rant when you said, hey, C-SPAN would be a good poll for the politically engaged. What about the everyman? I've talked about it here, but a lot of money goes into these pollings, right? If you wanted to do it right, you would go to every single one of these major swing states. And more, Mark, I really do believe that you're correct. Pennsylvania is going to end up being the decider just because of how corrupt the system is, not necessarily if we had free and fair elections. But here's how you could really get a beat on those free and fair elections. You go to Pennsylvania, you go to Arizona, you go to Georgia, you go to Wisconsin and Michigan. It's only 5 out of the 50 states, big ones that matter. You can maybe do Georgia as well. I don't know if I mentioned that. And you roll the dice and you go to 10 random Walmarts at each, and you live stream asking people of voting age who they're going to go for. You know what? 74%, we might be lowballing it, brother. I think that's really the reality. And as funny and jokey as that sounds, I think that's brilliant. Like anybody, hey, Mr. Beast, you got all the money in the world. You want to do something worthwhile and political? I think that's how you tap into America. And you have to show the rest of the world that, because we're relying on guys with those haircuts and those lies and the numbers they're telling us, right? That's why I like more of a randomized poll with something like C-SPAN, because like you said, it's not Republicans or Democrats or liberals. It's everybody of a certain nature that's not necessarily of a political persuasion, but is interested in the process, right? So let's go to the people that might not be interested in the process. Let's go to them on their turf. Let's get it in real time, and let's show everybody, Mark, because I'm with you. They know, first of all, a lot of people, even if they're not engaged, are offended that she's the nominee because she didn't get any votes. That's like a problem. It's not like not only the independent voter, but even traditional Democrats are necessarily happy with that aspect. That's jumping the shark a little too much for some, but maybe not quite enough to get over the TDS.
It's really interesting. While we're sitting here talking about, through the magic of communications, about Harris flip-flops. She's doing something now that even, I mean, some of the dumbest damn ideas I've ever heard economically. And she's speaking literally while our show's going on. How dare her talk while Election Edge is going on, but she is. She's holding a rally in Pennsylvania right now, and she's doubling down on stupid. I mean, look, I never want to, I don't like using derogatory terms against anyone, particularly in the political arena. But these economic ideas that she's talked about, wage and price controls on the food industry, which has a 2% profit margin, is some of the dumbest damn stuff I've ever heard. What she doesn't seem to get is that on the food business, a lot of the costs go into labor, which is shooting through the roof, packaging, very expensive, transportation. And here she's at a big rally saying, doubling down on dumb, which she talked about the other night, wage and price controls. The last time this was tried was 1971. It failed so badly, we had shortages. And even at that point, the Nixon administration got rid of it after 3 months. And to top it off, she's still out there talking about taxing capital gains on unrealized gains. Folks, that would literally tank the economy if she did that. So, I mean, when I hear these things, you know, even her plan on housing, where she's, I want to give everybody $25,000 to first-time home buyers. We've already got a hot housing market. Didn't they learn anything that throwing trillions of dollars at a problem doesn't work? And Jason, with our economy right now, as difficult as it is for many people, the U.S. is $35 trillion in debt, folks. There is no plan in place from the Harris administration other than, well, it sounds like Bernie Sanders' redo. We got to tax the billionaires. No, that's not good. That is going to get you this amount. So, Jason, we're $35 trillion in debt. We're going to spend $1 trillion a year on interest, which is more than we spend on the military. And this economic clown is out there in Pennsylvania right now. I hate using those words, folks, but it is literally dumbing down the electorate to suggest that these policies would have a snowball's chance, A, of passing Congress, B, of working. And I'll give you an example. You know, the idea that she copied of Trump's no tax on tips? Well, in California, the legislature, controlled by Democrats, 2-1, could not pass that. It's just bizarre. So sorry for the rambling, but I got off on it because a little birdie was telling me what Harris was saying at a Pennsylvania rally. Are you surprised,
Yeah.
Jason?
Mark, I just say that clearly you were not paying attention at the debate when she outlined her plan for an opportunity-driven economy again and again. It's an opportunity-driven economy. I'm not sure whose opportunities or what opportunities those are, but that was the talking point. Now, there's a new talking point from Trump that I'm not sure that these people are going to be willing to jump on, but again, they would if they were really sincere and they wanted to win this election freely and fairly, or even have an opportunity at that, they would jump on this one. No tax on tips, brilliant. Should have been done years ago. It's a crime. They're taxing money that is essentially a gift. It's ridiculous. But he's talking about no tax on overtime. Okay. All right. I like that. Now, I'm going to say this, Mark, just like the 40-hour-a-week union job with benefits, overtime in a lot of places has gone by the wayside. But where it exists, a lot of people are willing to take it in the law enforcement arenas, sometimes the factory arenas, etc. And to not tax that is huge because anybody who's worked overtime, hi, I'm that guy, they'll tell you they tax the dickens out of you. Now, I know you're a big shot and you do these trades, and I'm sure you get taxed at a big percent. But like when I work 60 hours a week and my paycheck, I would think, is going to be almost double what it should be, because again, you're getting paid that time and a half, maybe a little bit more, depending on where you're at. And you're nowhere near that because the extra taxes you hit at a different bracket, you get a little sour taste in your mouth. But there's a lot more incentive to do those 20 other hours. And quite frankly, we know not a lot of people are getting a chance at overtime because they're not getting a chance at full time. at this point. So again, it's a great talking point. It's a great policy. It could help make America great again. I don't think Kamala Harris is going to jump on this one like the no tax for tips. But again, if they were smart, they would. And if they were even smarter, they would fast track both those things, not only just to help American citizens, but help their chances of actually winning.
Well, that's a great point, because what happens is if you do not tax the overtime and you put more money in people's pocket, guess what happens? They spend it. And if people spend excess money, that helps grow the overall economy. That helps increase the tax revenue to the federal government. And that would help reduce this enormous $2 trillion deficit that we're facing right now on an annual basis. Jason, I think that's a great idea. And it goes back to the old Ronald Reagan theory: tax it less, produce more. So if people are willing to step up, and a lot of people will, because of what you just said, when they got that extra overtime and more taxes got taken out, okay, do they really want to work that hard to have more money go to the government? Probably not. But even though they would keep more of it if you didn't tax the overtime, again, that money goes back into circulation in the economy, and that helps everybody. So I think Trump's onto something here. I think it's a very good idea. Will she copy that? I doubt it. But I will give her credit on one thing. She did break from the Biden administration, sort of copying Trump's policies as she lurches to the middle about long-term capital gains. And she wants to cap it at 28%. It's currently in the 23 to 28% range, depending how it all plays out. But again, if you didn't know any better, Jason, that would be a moderate Republican proposal. Madam Producer, we might play one more video that shows the Kamala Harris flip-flopped, and then Jason and I will comment it right after it plays.
And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand.
What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
Jason, mandatory buyback program for guns, Medicare for all. I'm the champion of domestic oil drilling now, even though I was for the Green New Deal before.
First of all, I don't think there's going to be a mandatory buyback program. I think that unless you get some kind of a mega disaster in this country and we would probably have to be on the verge of an actual civil war, not just what they're trying to hype up before I think that's even a possibility. But the idea she's a gun owner, let's be frank. Number one, once you hit a certain level of politics, and she's been the vice president for how long? She's got Secret Service with plenty of guns and security with plenty of guns, right? So those guns are never getting taken away. Tim Walz, military, etc., also a governor, plenty of guns surrounding that guy. The concern is this mandatory anything. So the gun issue, look, under a Harris administration, I think that you do have to actually be concerned that she goes back to the talking points that you just heard, because you always hear those talking points from Democrats once they're in power, period. When you talk about the economy, first of all, Medicare for all, we already kind of have that in so many regards. Like Medicaid is here, Medicare is there. When they talk about Medicare for all, it's this illusion of some kind of benevolent system where you're going to have choice and you're going to not have to pay for it. It's all going to be taken out. Well, again, if you're under a certain tax bracket, you already have that. And I would argue it's a terrible system. You don't want that tier of medicine. And I would argue if you have that system, now we're just getting taxed more for subpar health care, and which is eventually what they want. So they have to take that mantra a little bit back. It's not like they have the money for it, but I guarantee that talking point and that push for socialized medicine, just like Obamacare, comes back. Now, the drilling is interesting, right? You're going to have to drill that just on the basis that, look, Biden may have sold off a bunch of reserves to China. He must have screwed over our internal industry. It's not like we had rolling blackouts throughout the country, Mark, right? They're going to keep the lights on at least for a little while. So they have to massage that. But at the same time, is it going to be boomtown? No, they're still going to be pushing the green agenda, bringing these things up. And who knows, in that administration, we may see more and more things cut off. So look, this seems down the line based politics. Like you said, she doesn't have any real ideology other than the ideology of power. And the talking points have to be somewhere moderate, because even when they're out of line, like having to admit how bad the economy is, Jake Tapper's coming for you on some level. At the same time, I'm just saying, like, even watch that interview with her and Waltz and Bash, right? Even like Dana Bash, as far back as they're pushing, you could see how uncomfortable she was. And I would argue that's why the interview took so long. It was obviously highly edited, etc. Right. These aren't policies that most people want. So you've got to at least move to a position that sounds somewhat reasonable for the time being.
Excuse me. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to take our final break. But when we come back, we're going to give you a little look ahead based upon what we've seen post-debate. And we'll give you an update on where this race stands in those particular 7 swing states. And we'll also got a couple little surprises for you. Be back in 90 seconds.
Attention business owners, are you ready to advertise to millions of loyal patriots ready to buy your products or services? Here's your golden opportunity to advertise with Mark Shaftline. When you advertise on Election Edge, you've aligned your company with a trusted voice and connected with an audience that shares your values. Mark hosts the exciting new live show that delves into every facet of the 2024 U.S. presidential election, offering insightful analysis, expert interviews, and up-to-the-minute coverage of the key events and developments throughout the election season. When you advertise on Election Edge, you're aligning your brand with integrity, loyalty, and a dedication to truth. Mark's audience is passionate, conservative, and committed to the values your business stands for. When given the choice, Mark's followers will buy your product or service over other woke companies. Don't miss this opportunity to elevate your brand with the power of Patriot TV. Reach out to us today at advertise@patriot.tv. The Donor Deck represents a groundbreaking independent crowdfunding initiative driven by patriots like you to bring back our esteemed President Donald J. Trump to office. With unwavering passion, we pledge all profits from the sale to MAGA Inc. and Fight Like a Flynn PAC. The exquisitely detailed challenge coin is a timeless collectible to be passed down to generations. It symbolizes your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. Get your Donor Deck now. Go to the PatriotTV store and click on Donor Deck. Enjoy the magnificent artwork and scripture on each playing card, knowing our appreciation for your continuous dedication to assisting President Trump in his quest to rejuvenate America to its former greatness. You'll get this keepsake collectible challenge coin acknowledging your support for Donald Trump's run back to the White House, and the Donor Deck of 52 exquisite playing cards, plus a beautiful display case to show your challenge coin. Go to the Patriot.tv store and get your Donor Deck now.
And we're back. Madam Producer, I want you to put one other cute little video up there of Kamala the Marxist that President Trump often refers to.
She's gone to my philosophy, but if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you.
Jason, I mean, he lays it out there pretty straightforward. I mean, her policies, she's trying to shift to the middle, but when a politician says something the first time, believe him, because that's what she really thinks.
You know, again, I thought it was one of Trump's stronger moments. I know there are certain people like Trevor Loudon who I've had in my program that are probably cheering Trump on as he does that. Obviously has that book out calling her a Marxist. You know, I don't throw that terminology around a lot. I think that she's an opportunist. I think that she's a social climber. I think she is super malleable to not only authoritarianism, but the globalist agenda. And, you know, what I was really paying attention to was how reserved she kept herself as Trump talked about her father. He taught her well, you know, and she said, first she's got the little, I'm telling you, that's the reason I thought she did well. She was coached very well. Now, at the same time, you know, it would be nice to see what an audience reaction would have been, because let's say you had an audience of both sides. You throw the Marx term out there, you're going to get a lot of boo, boo, you know? So, look, I think Trump nailed it in the fact that this woman doesn't really have a political ideology other than the one that is top down and really the type of, see, this is the reason I don't love Marxism. It is the new techno-fascism based in, you know, narrative-driven events and censorship on a vast level on the other side. And you know, that's another thing that Trump should have highlighted more and more. Yes, he got into the assassination attempt, but he should have brought up the fact that he's still up for sentencing after the election where he could be put in prison. Yes, he talked about trying to put him in prison in the lawfare, but he didn't emphasize that enough either. I mean, when we're talking about things that have been quote unquote called Marxist ideologies and policies, one of the frameworks for that one is jailing your political opponents, Mark.
Oh, yeah. And look, Trump's got, you think average Americans think this election's the most important election in the history of the world. For Trump, it literally is. I mean, if the man wins, he's president. If the man loses, he could be in Rikers. I mean, that's a pretty big schism right there. So, Jason, again, through the magic of communications, I'm going to go back to something you said at the very first part of the program. Trump is now out distancing himself from this Laura Loomer. And every time, true enough with the media in this country, every time Trump tries to distance himself from a problem, they show pictures of Trump, you know, with the problem. Okay, so Jason, Trump is listening to your advice, and he is completely trying to, I don't even know the person. What are you talking about? Who is she? No, he's not going that far. But again, you mentioned at the top of the show, you know, this amazing media creation today, and all of a sudden Trump, he's either listening to you or his advisors because he's trying to distance himself from that. All right. Are you shocked that that's happening?
It just is so crazy how quick the media cycle is, right? I mean, I know that you hadn't even heard of it before the show when we were kind of just talking in the prep room, but I found it, you know, hard nights sleeping sometimes, Mark. Sometimes I wake up at about 3 a.m. and I hit that media feed and I saw Loomer was trending and I saw this. And the thing that struck me the most is it felt like to me they were going to try to make this into the new Stormy Daniels. because they were trying to allude to an affair with her. But listen, as much as Trump's trying to get away from this one, I don't think it's going anywhere. In fact, Mark, I'm going to go 60-40 that we're going to have to address this next week on Election Edge. 64 40 against, but 60% we're going to have to talk about this next week.
Well, you know, when you asked me what was trending, I said, don't tell me that story about cats and dogs being eaten in Ohio is the #1 story. And you go, oh, no, that's old news now. Here's the new one. No, I mean, this is just a classic example. Look, you mentioned this also earlier in the show. The overwhelming number of voters, I'm guessing it's 90 to 95%. They've made up their mind. They know who they're voting for. You've got that sliver, again, undecided voters in 7 states. You're literally probably talking anywhere from 20 to 100,000 voters are going to decide this election. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But I do want to give you one little piece of polling news here. And sorry for reading down by my notes here. But Scott Rasmussen, who has a very accurate polling company, he's been right about elections. No more off than a point in the last 8 presidential elections. So he's got street cred. He says Trump's leading by 2 right now. And based upon his sampling size here, Trump is picking up support among black voters, picking up support among Hispanic voters. I think both of those are true. We do have a gender gap, more men voting for Trump, more women voting for Harris. We've seen that, but that gap is narrowing. So, Jason, and in this poll, I looked at the numbers behind it, how the breakdown was, men, women, white, black, Hispanic, etc. It looks like a fairly good representation, in a poll. Rasmussen, he had Trump +2 before the debate. He's got Trump +2 after the debate. And the Harris campaign is quietly sort of saying, we're not sure we can win Pennsylvania, and we're not sure we can win Arizona. Madam Producer, if you could put that map up real quick. This is Election Edge's opinion. It's where we think the race is. And you notice, Jason, in this map here, I've got Pennsylvania in red because I really believe Trump's going to win it. I've got Arizona red because I think he's going to win Arizona. The one state, and I've even given Michigan and Wisconsin possibly to Harris. But look at that state of North Carolina. I didn't put any winner in there because it's so razor tight. I mean, some polls have showed Harris up a point, some but Trump up a point. It's that tight. Under that scenario right there, Jason, Trump has 265 electoral votes, Harris 257. You can take the map down now. So under that scenario, whoever would win North Carolina would be president.
I think that you're kind of right on Pennsylvania. North Carolina is another big question. But just like you said, you had, I believe, Wisconsin blue on that map. I also think that is up for grabs as well.
Yeah.
It's tough to tell, how many people are on the voter rolls. You were joking about the cats and dogs, but I would advise people go to my Twitter, go check out what Thomas Massey just had to say about the budget, the bill, and the SAVE Act attached, and the dog and pony show that's coming with it. And he's telling you right now, if these people are in there, they're already registered vote, and some of them have probably already voted. This isn't going to save everything. That's part of the wild card scenario coming up, in my opinion, Mark.
Well, you're spot on that. We don't have enough time to get into the SAVE Act today. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. But basically, the Republicans want to attach a rider to the budget bill stipulating that illegal immigrants can't vote. It's very important. I don't think it's going to pass muster. I don't think it'll be there. But again, we'll talk about that for sure next week. Again, I'll close it out with this, folks. And Jason, again, thank you for being my guest today. Making sense of the madness, folks. It's our flagship program. Jason does it. And he's on every day, Jason, at
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Eastern.
That's correct. 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock West Coast time. All right, thanks for joining me, Jason. And we'll be back on Monday with more Election Edge. Thanks for viewing. Have a great weekend.